Welcome to Football Gameplan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and the 2017 college football season is rapidly approaching, and we are here to get you ready for the season as we preview the Pioneer League. Here's a look at what we have in store for you guys in this season's preview. We'll take a look at some of the incoming talent in our recruiting roundup. We'll hand out some superlatives, including our preseason all-conference team in our conference preseason awards segment. And we will also take an early look at some of the 2018 NFL draft prospects that you want to keep an eye on this season. But first, let's kick things off by taking you around the Pioneer League as we go into our 4-minute offense. The Campbell Camels, who restarted their program back in 2007 after a 58-year hiatus, is moving on up and out of the Pioneer League in 2018. The Camels made the decision to go to scholarship football and will join the school's other sports in the Big South Conference for 2018. They've been competitive in the Pioneer League since 2007, and head coach Mike Minter, who is entering his 5th season, has his squad heading in the right direction. The Valparaiso Crusaders are striving for consistency in the very tough Pioneer League. 4th-year head coach Dave Cicchini has done a great job of infusing talent into this program, and with last year's 4-7 record, it's showing that the talent is starting to pay dividends. There were a lot of positives to take away from the 2016 season, and we'll see if the lessons turn into results this season for the Crusaders. Across the FCS landscape, you often hear about the strength of the other conferences, but the Pioneer League doesn't get mentioned at all. And that's unfortunate because we've seen how strong and deep this conference is from top to bottom. Last season might have been the breakout the conference needed from a perception standpoint, as the University of San Diego went into Cal Poly and knocked off the Mustangs in the FCS playoffs. We saw Dayton knock off Robert Morris last year as well. Drake and San Diego had players drafted in the NFL draft last season, so it should be safe to say that people won't sleep on the Pioneer League in 2017. You hear it all the time in the NFL that it's a quarterback league. Well, in college football, the Pioneer League does a great job of making that statement very true. There are some talented signal callers across the league, from Anthony Lawrence of San Diego, Mike White of Marist, Grant Kramer of Drake, and Alex Jeske out of Dayton, just to name a few. So it's no surprise that the Pioneer League is so competitive from top to bottom because, again, if you have solid quarterback play, you have a chance to win each and every Saturday, and this league definitely has that. In college football, you're only as good as your ability to recruit and develop the players that you bring into your program. And this past signing day, there was no shortage of future impact players added to the conference. So let's hit the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason. The Butler Bulldogs have done a solid job in bringing in quality defensive backs, and they're definitely getting a good one in Devin Aguilar out of Oswego, Illinois. The 5'11", 170-pound defensive back has terrific ball skills and could find himself transitioning into either a slot corner or safety down the line. The Campbell Camels have to replenish their defensive line talent. Dre Giles at 6'3", 250 looks to be the next in line of talented pass rushers coming out of that program. This is a guy that I think can get up to about 260 to 270 without losing speed, athleticism, and when you combine that with his ability to make plays in the backfield, you have to like his chances moving forward. In the Pioneer League, it's imperative to be strong along the line of scrimmage, and Davidson drove that point home on the recruiting front by signing 7 offensive linemen. Jan Brent Jeans out of the powerhouse St. Peter's Prep program in Jersey City, New Jersey, has the ability to play either center or both tackle spots, adding both versatility and flexibility to the Wildcats' offensive line. I like the quickness off the ball by the Dayton Flyers signee James Ellis. If he stays between a 260 to 270 pound range, I can foresee him handling multiple roles along the defensive line for the Flyers. Ellis has very good spatial awareness to get the job done on both ends of defense. The Bulldogs lose an NFL player in Eric Solbert at tight end, but when you look at incoming freshman Dalton Taylor, you can see some of the same athletic traits Solbert brought to the table. So it'll be interesting to see how his body develops and where he ultimately lands position-wise in his Bulldogs career. The Jacksonville Dolphins add a talented interior lineman in Max Moore, who is very strong at the point of attack, and Moore, in my opinion, can excel at either guard spot or center as well. I'm excited to see how he develops moving forward. The Marist Red Foxes got better in the backfield with the addition of Mekhi Johnson. The 5'10", 200-pound runner exhibits the patience, the footwork, and the vision necessary to succeed as a Division I tailback. He also shows good enough speed to take it the distance. Morehead State added a talented back themselves in Tyler Bowles, and what I like about Bowles' game is that he's a very versatile perimeter threat. He's capable of doing damage in the slot as a receiver or coming out of the backfield, and I think he fits in perfectly with what the Eagles do on offense. The Toreros land an impressive linebacker in Muhindo Kapapa out of Fairfield, California. Kapapa doesn't miss many tackles and has a ton of upside left in his game. You can tell he's still sort of thinking a lot out there on the field, but keep an eye on him moving forward, because by the time he's a junior, San Diego may have themselves a legit pro prospect on their hands. Adding to the league of quarterbacks are the Stetson Hatters by nabbing an excellent prospect in Mark Ellis. Ellis, in my opinion, has a chance to be special. He has tremendous deep ball accuracy with the right combination of both velocity and touch on those passes. He will have a chance to compete for playing time very early as a true freshman. Nick Johnson brings a ton of functional strength and athleticism to the Valparaiso offensive line. Johnson, at 6'4", 335, would already be one of the biggest offensive linemen on the Crusaders roster, so we'll see if that alone will get him on the field early as a freshman. This conference is filled with talented players across the board, and what better way to illustrate that than to unveil our 2017 Preseason All-Conference team. This is an impressive list of offensive talent in the Pioneer League that I wouldn't mind coaching against any other team in the FCS. Quarterback Anthony Lawrence headlines this list as he's coming off a stellar sophomore season with the Toreros, and he has 3 of his own offensive linemen joining him on this preseason all-conference team as well. Marist all-purpose player Lawrence Dickens finished second on the team in receiving and first on the team in kickoff return yardage. His teammate, wide receiver Justin Christian, was spectacular in 2016. The 6', 186-pound junior finished 8 yards shy of 1,000 yards for the season on 48 receptions, scoring 8 touchdowns in the process. Defensively, another Torero headlines this team. Jonathan Peterson is one of the more talented pass rushers in the FCS. So is Drake's Mac Marin, who battled injuries all season long, but was still able to garner honorable mention All-Pioneer Football League honors last season. Christian Cyrillus out of Dayton is the type of player that fills up the stat sheet each and every week. Last year, Cyrillus finished the season with 36 tackles, 2 TFLs, and 11 pass breakups, along with 5 interceptions. He's a 4-year starter that's one of the top corners in the FCS. Moving on to the specialists on our preseason All-Pioneer League team, and Valpo returnman Bailey Gessinger was super impressive last year as a freshman. The 5'10", 170-pound receiver finished the season averaging 24.4 yards per kickoff return, bringing 2 back to the house for touchdowns. Let's take a look at some of the Pioneer League's best buy position in our conference superlative segment. The San Diego Toreros get the nod for the best quarterback room in the PFL, led by Anthony Lawrence, who threw for nearly 3,000 yards last season, completing 67% of his passes with 25 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions. The Toreros also have a strong backup in Reed Sennett, who's 6'4", 215, and can put the ball anywhere he wants to on the field. I really like the backfield of the Butler Bulldogs, with fullback Devonta Lane leading the way, and Butler gets back a healthy Sam Schrader as well, who was an All-Pioneer Football League performer in 2014. And Anthony Scotcha is a talented junior who finished second on the team in rushing, averaging 5 yards a carry. The Jacksonville Dolphins always seem to have a ton of talent on the perimeter. Both Brian Burnett and Prince Gray are excellent targets. The duo combined for over 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Keep an eye on sophomore Mitchell Bailey this season, as he has that ability to go up top and win above the rim. Along the offensive line, the San Diego Toreros stand out above the rest. As you saw earlier in the video, 3 Toreros graced the preseason all-conference team, and all 5 starters return up front. But you look at Miles McCardle, Daniel Cooney, and Joe Herney, they helped pave the way for one of the more balanced offensive attacks in the FCS last season. Marist owns the best defensive line crown in the Pioneer League. The Red Foxes can bring pressure from anywhere across the defensive front, and they are led by all-PFL performer Peter Delatorre, who was also named the ECAC and PFL Defensive Rookie of the Year after posting 9 TFLs and 5 sacks. Defensive linemen Eddie Zen Turner, Quinn McGinley, and Daniel Njoku also made a living in the opposing backfield as well, and this is an experienced group ready to duplicate what they did in 2016. Valparaiso has a strong quartet of linebackers led by Drew Snoffer, who finished last season as the team's leader in tackles with 102, and the Crusaders also bring back Kyle Hall, Derek Esto, and Mike Wheeler in 2017. That trio combined for over 150 tackles and 14 sacks. We have a tie for the best secondary in the PFL between Dayton and Marist. The Flyers are strong on the back end with Christian Cyrillus leading the way. Safety David Leesring was second team All-PFL last season after picking off 5 passes and posting 73 tackles as well. Marist has their own ball hawk on the back end in Wesley Beans. The 5'10", 188-pound defensive back picked off 6 passes in 2016. Safety Jordan Jean Felix was also a ball magnet as well, picking off 3 passes. Both Brandon Miller and Josh Taylor, amongst others, give them strong play on the corners. The Valparaiso Crusaders boast a strong special teams unit at all 3 facets. Their return game was handled by a freshman in Bailey Gessinger, who had 2 kickoff return touchdowns. The kicking game was equally as impressive with kicker Jake Simpson and punter Alex Ng. Ng averaged 37.7 yards per punt, downing 14 inside the 20-yard line and forcing 15 fair catches. In the 2017 NFL Draft this past April, we saw 15 prospects from the FCS get their names called, and many more have signed free agent deals in the NFL and also in the CFL. And this is shaping up to be yet another strong class in the football championship subdivision. And here are a few guys that you want to keep an eye on for the 2018 NFL Draft. The Pioneer Football League had 2 NFL draft prospects last season in cornerback Jamal Agnew of San Diego and tight end Eric Saubert out of Drake. Both programs have draft prospects this season as well in Mac Marin, Jonathan Peterson, Ray Clark, and Ross Dwelly. And speaking of Ross Dwelly, he has a ton of fluidity in his game. He actually reminds me of a more athletic version of last year's tight end Eric Saubert, who was pretty athletic in his own right. He's 6'5", 250, and it was the leading receiver last year for the Toreros and their go-to player. He's as solid as a blocker as they come, but it will be his receiving skills and his versatility that'll make the scouts start to take notice. We've now reached the part of the show where it's time to go more in depth on what we can expect within the conference in 2017. Stetson Hatters head coach Roger Hughes is still getting his program on solid footing in the talent-rich state of Florida. What's going to be the biggest concern for Coach Hughes this season is on the offensive side of the ball. Stetson has to be able to find some level of consistency on that side, and I feel like Stetson's defense has been good enough to get them a winning record, but the offense has struggled to sustain drives and put together consistent, positive performances. Defensively, the Hatters will once again be good enough, especially up front. Will this be the year the offense surprises everyone and join the party? We shall see. I saw enough last season being on the broadcast for the Davidson-Georgetown game to see the improvement in talent for the Wildcats. In my opinion, head coach Paul Nichols is a really good coach and is building something sustainable at Davidson. Where he wants his team to get it, so to speak, is in the execution department. The Wildcats were solid on special teams and on defense, but so inconsistent on offense, and inconsistent to the point where they could not close out ball games last season. The hope is that youth turns into seasoned vets with experience in 2017. So look for the Wildcats to be improved over last year, where the 2018 season, you could really see them break through. A lot of the success of the 2017 Morehead State Eagles will more than likely depend on what type of play they can get from the quarterback position. Also, the Eagles can't allow their defense to give up nearly 35 points a game, so both sides will have to meet up somewhere in the middle in order for MSU to get back on track. Head coach Rob Tenyer has done a very good job with this program since taking over 4 seasons ago, and will have his Eagles ready to play each and every week. So look for the defense to stabilize, and they'll complement their offense really well. I think the Eagles can flirt with a 500 or better record this year. The Drake Bulldogs could find themselves replicating last year's success despite replacing some key offensive pieces. I think defensively they'll be much improved as defensive end Mac Marin is back at 100%. And the obvious question will be, who will replace tight end Eric Saubert, who was the Bulldogs' leading receiver last year? There are a host of talented up-and-comers vying for that opportunity, both at tight end and at receiver, and I really like the junior wideout Devin Cates. I think he has a chance to be special, and we'll learn a lot about this Bulldogs offense within the first 3 weeks of the season as they play South Dakota and South Dakota State. This is a big year for the Campbell Camels as they leave the Pioneer League after this season and move on to the Big South Conference next year. Head coach Mike Minter wants to go out in style and has a chance to do so because of his defense and experience at the quarterback position. The question will be, can the Camels shore up its defensive line, which has normally been an area of strength for the Orange and Black? The running game has to replenish its production as well. And with the experience along the offensive line, I think the running game production will be easy to get back. If the quarterbacks can avoid costly mistakes, this team has a chance to get off to a great start by the time they meet up with Dayton on October 14th. The Butler Bulldogs are looking to get back to the consistency of the 2012 and 2013 seasons. Right now, they're hovering around the middle of the pack in the Pioneer League. The 2017 squad does have a lot of optimism entering this year because they know for a fact they can do two things really well that gives them a shot to win. They can run the ball and they can play good defense. What has to happen in order to push them over the top this year is that the Bulldogs' passing game has to be able to provide enough balance to keep the defense honest. And their defense has to be able to affect the pocket enough to where they can get off the field on third downs. If that happens, expect Butler to make things very interesting and make some noise in the PFL. Valparaiso has quietly built themselves into a formidable foe in the PFL. Head coach Dave Cicchini has done a great job in recruiting and developing talent on the roster. Offensively, look for the Crusaders to be much more consistent as quarterback Jimmy Seawald is coming off a promising freshman season and is now a sophomore, which should yield better results for everyone on offense as a result. Defensively, the biggest question is in the secondary, but as the old football saying goes, the front end has to help out the back end, and in my opinion, in this case, is going to be the front seven because Valpo has a strong group of linebackers that can also pressure the quarterback. Obviously, it's about complementary football for the Crusaders, and as the offense improves, which I fully expect it to do this season, so will the defense. I think Valpo will be much better in 2017. Can the Jacksonville Dolphins get better defensively is the biggest question entering this year. There's no questioning the offensive side of the ball as they return 10 starters and were very explosive, but defensively, giving up 33 points a game won't cut it this year for Jacksonville. The Dolphins simply could not get off the field on third downs, mainly due to their inability to stop the run. So all eyes will be on a defensive line that has to raise its level of play. Yes, they're replacing some stud linebackers, but I do think they have good depth back there and also in the secondary. And if their defense can improve to at least middle of the pack, look out for the Dolphins. They open up with a huge game against the Mercer Bears. Keep an eye on the Marist Red Foxes this year in the PFL. I think you can make a case that the Red Foxes have the most complete team on both sides of the ball in this league. And it wouldn't be a hot take, so to speak, to say that because we saw a young football team get out to a 4-0 start last year before collapsing late in the season. Now, if you project forward, this young team should be better at closing out and finishing games. Where they're going to be tough is along both sides of the line of scrimmage and also in the secondary. They also have the benefit of having strong quarterback play with Mike White returning back there as the signal caller. So we'll see how far they've come pretty early in the season as they have a rematch with two Patriot League foes in the first 3 weeks in Bucknell and Georgetown. The Dayton Flyers spent last season at home despite having a 9-2 record. The Flyers are looking to change that this year by finding a way into the postseason. In order for that to happen, they'll have to answer some questions up front on both lines of scrimmage. I think there are slight, not huge questions, to be honest. This is a really good football team that has talent at the skill positions and on the perimeter on defense. Their secondary can really fly around and turn the ball over, and it's hard to say that a team has to be better than a 9-2 record in order to make the playoffs. But if the Flyers can go undefeated in their 9-conference slate against Robert Morris, Duquesne, and Southeast Missouri State, the schedule sets up nicely for them later on in the year as they get San Diego at home. The San Diego Toreros lost some serious firepower to graduation on both sides of the ball. Defensively, there's some reloading that has to happen at cornerback and along the defensive line. The good news is that their offense still has strong perimeter talent, a top-notch quarterback, and the best offensive line in the PFL. That alone tells me that they are prepped to win with their offense as their defense will slowly come along as they move on through the season, and they'll most likely be playing with the lead. That's not to say that they can't be good on that side of the ball right off the bat, but they do have the comfort of having one of the best offenses in the Pioneer Football League to help aid in that development. This will be once again a fun year to watch the Pioneer Football League. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts, and if you want to check out our other FCS season previews, visit our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Also on iTunes, subscribe to Football Game Plan Podcast, where you can find our FCS Opening Drive podcast.